Today we're going to be talking about creating or constructing polygons, okay? And we know if we construct something, if it's on a construction site, we're creating it or we're building it, okay? So we're going to build or create some polygons, and this is still 5G3. Go ahead and add it to your table of contents. And we're going to be looking at day 46 pages. Okay, and the first thing I want to look at is the geoboard paper that you have. And we're going to look at constructing polygons set A. Now there's two of these, so make sure you have set A. Okay, and it gives us directions if we were to do this in class with partners, so Ms. Reynolds is going to modify those directions since we're doing it via video notes. Okay, so it says on a geoboard, independently create each shape described below and record it on geoboard paper. When you are finished, find your designated partner and compare each of your polygons for 1 through 8 by recording the similarities and differences between the two shapes. So I'm going to do two different shapes myself instead of having to find a partner. And we're going to talk about similarities, differences, and the names of those two shapes. All right, so on my geoboard paper, I see that for number 1, it wants me to have something, create a shape that has 4 sides and 4 right angles. I know right angles are 90 degrees. Okay, so the first shape that I think of is a square. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 dots here, 2 dots here, 2 dots here, and 2 dots here. Now the reason I did 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here, and 2 here, because I know if this is a square, it has to have all equal sides, and all of these angles are 90 degrees. Okay, they're exactly 90 degrees, and it has 4 total sides. Each side is 2 units. Okay, and it has 4 total sides. All right, then another 4-sided shape or polygon that has 4 right angles is a rectangle. Now this is 2 units, this side is, and this side is 2 units, but these sides are 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Now the thing about a rectangle is opposite sides are congruent, or opposite sides have the same length in a rectangle. Only the opposite sides have the same length. All sides don't have the same length like as in a square, okay? It also has right angles. Okay, so when I look at my two shapes I created, I'm going to go back to my constructing polygon set A. Just going to fold it over there so it'll fit on this paper so we can see it all. The similarities that they have. They both have 4 sides. They both have 4 right angles. Okay, and both have opposite sides congruent. Now, what do you mean by that, Ms. Reynolds? You just said that only the rectangle has opposite sides. Well, if I look, opposite sides are those right across from each other. This is 4, this is 4. This is 2, this is 2. The opposite sides here are congruent. Look over here at the square. This is 2, this is 2. Those opposite sides are congruent. This is 2, this is 2. Those opposite sides are congruent. Okay? So even though even though this only has opposite sides congruent, it doesn't have all sides congruent, this still has opposite and all sides congruent. Because it's true, the opposite sides are congruent and all the sides are congruent. All right? So when I think about a difference, one difference between these two is that the square has all sides congruent. The rectangle does not. Okay, and the names of my shapes were a square and rectangle. All right, so that was number 1 for me, and I can label that on my geoboard paper with number 1. These two problems were both in number 1. All right, let's look at number 2. 3 sides and 1 right angle. Okay, 3 sides and 1 right angle. I know any shape with 3 sides is going to be a triangle. If it has 3 sides, it has to be a triangle. And I know if it has one at a right angle, it has to be a right triangle. So I'm going to try to do 2 different right triangles, okay, on my geoboard paper. So I'm going to start number 2 right here. I'm going to draw a right triangle here. Okay, and then I'm going to draw another right triangle here. They both have a right angle. They both have 3 sides. Okay, if I look here, 1, 2, 3, 4 units is this side, and 1, 2, 3, 4 units is this side. Now this side is kind of hard to count because it's going diagonal. Okay, but I can still count the number of units between each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Let's see. Now this one has 1, 2 units. This one has 1, 2 units. And this one has 2 units. All right. So if I look at the similarities between these 2 shapes, they're both, they both have 3 sides, obviously, and they both have 1 right angle. They both have congruent sides. Okay. The difference is one is larger than the other. And the name of these shapes, they are both right triangles. Okay. Now we're going to skip down to number 4 and look at that one. It says 4 sides with none congruent and no right angles. Okay. 4 sides, so I know if it has 4 sides, that means it's a quadrilateral. Anything with 4 sides is a quadrilateral. With none congruent, so none of the sides can be congruent, and no right angles. Okay, 4 sides with none of the no congruent sides and no right angles. When I think about this one's kind of trickier than some of the others. Okay, have to kind of think outside the box with this one. It has 4 right sides, none of them are congruent, and no right angles. I'm going to think about, come down here, right number 4, because that's the next one we're going to do. 4 right sides, or 4 sides, so I'm going to try to start drawing something that might have 4 sides but no congruent sides. Okay, and actually that won't work because it has a right angle in there. It said no right angle, so I got to scratch that one out. That one won't work. Let's try something else. One, 2, 3. Well, that one won't work either. Let's see how I can make this work here. Ooh, this one's tricky to me. Let's see. I could do Then that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. All right, number 4 is tricky to me. Let's use that one as a bonus. See if you guys can come up with 2 shapes that fit the description for number 4 and write those in. If you can, then you can have 4 tickets tomorrow, since Miss Reynolds seems to be having a point in her brain where she can't think of that. All right, so I want you to try to see if you can come up with number 4. All right, the next thing I want us to look at is the constructing polygons homework. Okay, and it says a square is a rhombus, always, sometimes, or never. We're supposed to put an X on where we think it might fit and explain our reasoning for that. Okay, A square is a rhombus, and we're going to mark always. And the reason why a square is always a rhombus because a rhombus is a four-sided shape with congruent sides. A square is a four-sided shape with congruent sides as well. Because they have the same definition or description, they are the same shape. So if I look at a square, there's the picture of a square. If I look at a picture of a rhombus, there's the picture of a rhombus. All the sides are the same. There's one unit in each side. And it has four sides. So both of these have that same category. So it means that a square is always a rhombus because the square has all the same parts that the rhombus has. Okay? The square has all the same parts that the rhombus has. Now that doesn't mean the rhombus has all the same parts that the square has, but it does mean that a square can always be considered a rhombus. Okay? Now if we look at number 2, all sides on a pentagon are congruent. Okay, now a pentagon is 5 sides, and it's saying that all sides on a pentagon are congruent. This is sometimes true. Okay, because a pentagon sometimes has all congruent sides if it is a regular polygon. Okay. An irregular pentagon may not have congruent sides. So basically what that means, if regular means all the sides are the same, irregular means that the sides don't have to be the same. So for instance, if I had a pentagon that looks like this, oops, I didn't draw that exactly correct, but that would be a regular pentagon. Now, if I had a pentagon that looked like a house, which is what most of us are used to when we draw a pentagon, that would be an irregular pentagon and all the sides would not be the same. Okay? Parallelograms are quadrilaterals. That right there is always because a parallelogram has 4 sides and quadrilaterals have 4 sides. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm just going to mark these here and we'll get the notes section here for this part tomorrow. Okay, if we turn on the back, all rectangles are squares. This is never true because rectangles don't have all the same properties as squares. If we look back at what we did on our geoboard paper, this rectangle was not the same thing as a square. The square had all the same parts as the rectangle, but the rectangle did not have all the same parts as the square. Okay. Scalene triangle has congruent sides. This is never, because we know a scalene triangle means no sides are congruent. Okay? A trapezoid can have at least one right angle. This is sometimes because you can have a right trapezoid, which is a special kind of trapezoid that has a right angle. Again, we will copy the definitions for these tomorrow in class, but I want you to make sure you have them marked always, sometimes, or never on this page. Okay? And the silly thing for this week is at least trying number 4 and showing me that you tried it to see if you can come up with 4 or 2 shapes that have those side lengths and the no congruent sides and no right angles. Thank you guys.